guard. I talked to the security guard just in there. He said he has been given specific orders to prevent employees of USAID from entering the building today. And I just find that to be absolutely ridiculous. This is no way to govern. This is no way to treat public servants. And this is no way for us to conduct our foreign policy as a country. So I just had to show up today, see it with my own eyes, the chaos of this administration and just their attacks upon public servants in our country.
Does the White House know what USAID does?
I think that there's a lot of questions, Katie. I think that, frankly, the President of the United States has not answered about his understanding of what this $40 billion operation that effectively works with, more than 100 different organizations, more than 60 different missions globally to work as a conduit for congressionally appropriated funds for humanitarian assistance and local development projects. And what Donald Trump in the Oval Office just a short time ago acknowledged to the press corps was that, in fact, he is okay with the way that Elon Musk has gone about effectively crippling the backbone of U.S. humanitarian assistance or organization. And not only that, but also Elon Musk's efforts within the Treasury Department to gain access through employees of payment disbursement files. But then also when you're looking at Elon Musk and in that Spaces conversation he had in After Midnight last night, Katie, it is a suggestion that they are willing to freeze billions of dollars in foreign assistance, but also potentially other payments. And what we heard from the president was no suggestion that he has any interest in putting a stop to the efforts of Elon Musk. We heard from some of those Democratic lawmakers on the literal front line of the government offices there at USAID headquarters, which was shut down today, and staffers who have not been fired or furloughed were told not to come to that office. And what you heard from some of those Democratic lawmakers was the argument that Elon Musk, the billionaire, has effectively been allowed to access not only personnel files, but also cut off congressionally approved funds through these major governmental agencies.
This is the primal scream of a dying regime. Pray for our enemies, because we're going medieval on these people. You're just not got a free shot on all these networks lying about the people. The people have had a belly full of it. I know you don't like hearing that. I know you try to do everything in the world to stop that, but you're not going to stop it. It's going to happen.
And where do people like that go to share the big lie? MAGA media. I wish, in my soul, I wish that any of these people had a conscience.
Ask yourself, what is my task and what is my purpose? If that answer is to save my country, this country will be saved.
War Room. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
It's Monday, 3 February, year of our Lord, 2025. We've got so much to go through as the deconstruction of the administrative state and the destruction of the deep state continues unabated in Days of Thunder. Michael Benz joins us. Michael, we're going to start with USAID because, and remember, Eli Crane just sent me the video from a year ago. Remember we did those all-night appropriations fights? Eli Crane and Matt Gaetz remind me that they tried to defund USAID, and they got less than 50% of the House votes. Less than 50% of the House votes. This is how feckless House Republicans are. Mike Benz, is USAID just funds 160 humanitarian institutions to do humanitarian and development projects for the good people of the United States of America? Is that its task and purpose, sir?
No, it's not even allowed to do that. It's a U.S. foreign policy vehicle. You have to understand, everything USAID does by charter is dual use. Under the cover of humanitarian work, they so-called advance U.S. national interests by accomplishing some goal in the region. Now, they don't actually accomplish U.S. national interest in the region. What they do is they accomplish the commercial or political goals of a very small secular elite within the United States and their international partners. So, for example, I've published about hundreds of different USAID scandals, from them claiming to run AIDS prevention clinics in Cuba and in all over South America. And it turns out that the AIDS prevention clinics were actually covers for undercover agents to sow anti-government dissent and to try to organize a revolution in the country. You had the case of Zunzuneo, where USAID took humanitarian funds earmarked for Pakistan and created a fake knockoff Twitter social media site where USAID documents explicitly stated in their own internal documents that the plan was to get 100,000 people in the country to join up to this social media service, luring them in with news feeds predominated by sports, news, and hurricane updates. And then at the appropriate moment, once enough people were onboarded, to hit them with messages to overthrow their government and take to the streets in smart mobs. You see this time and time again. You will see all over the news and all over these USAID HQ protests today and all over X from the intelligence community and military and statecraft blob folks. You will see them say, but USAID is funding irrigation canals and famine. If they are doing irrigation canal work, it is because they are trying to control the river systems in the country, in Ethiopia. Or, for example, when they were irrigating the fields in Afghanistan. Well, guess what they were doing there? They were growing the heroin supply. As their companion, the U.S. Institute for Peace, was lobbying the Taliban to keep the heroin supplies flowing, because it would be bad for Afghanistan and the world if they shut down the poppy crops. USAID was funding, the irrigation of those crops in order to keep the supply of heroin flowing. You see this time and time again. If they are doing famine relief projects, it is to control the food supply and therefore control the population and supplement that with sanctions work to make people angry against their government or dependent on the U.S. to dole out that food. Then, and take, for example, the job fairs. I just posted this just yesterday, and I've talked about this many times in the past 3 years. Mark Milley and Joe Biden in 2021 in their Special Forces prospectus game planned how USAID could do job fairs in poor countries in order to get people to take to the streets and riot and go on strike from their jobs, and so that it would help U.S. military operations by having USAID give free no-show jobs to Africans striking in race riots in Africa in order to basically, so it's a humanitarian job fair. But no, it's actually not. It's actually serving the dual purpose of rent-a-riots being organized by USAID. So USAID is just a mutant baby of the CIA and the State Department with a little top-up support to the U.S. military. And I could go on and on about this, but there's a lot of moving pieces to this story.
But I want to make sure it's a cutout for the CIA. Whatever the CIA wants to do with cover from the State Department, this is what they're doing. It's these types of projects, right?
Yes, that's why you see this money laundering operation out of there. They have a bigger budget than the CIA. The entire intelligence community combined is a $72 billion budget. And, so the thing is you park operations out of, I'll give you a great quote, for example. When USAID got busted running regime change work in South America by arguing that by using AIDS prevention, HIV prevention clinics, the USAID internal document said that those HIV prevention clinics would be, quote, the perfect cover, because counterintelligence in those countries would never look at an AIDS prevention clinic, an HIV prevention clinic, as a warehousing shop for intelligence organizing activity. So what happened is when the CIA got in trouble in the 1960s and 70s, they needed an ever deeper layer of plausible deniability for the dirty work. The CIA was only created because the State Department wanted to do the dirty work, but couldn't afford to get caught with U.S. government fingerprints on it. So they created a spy agency that did work claiming not to represent the U.S. government to do it. And then CIA started getting in trouble, and so USAID started taking over their business. And they do that in tandem with this group, the National Endowment for Democracy. They are, kissing cousins. They always move together in all things. This is a huge, massive, fundamental restructuring of the American empire that we're watching play out before our eyes. But there are many ways that, just like with Brexit, where there was this big referendum, a huge victory that Nigel Farage scored in June 2016, but they ultimately ended up stymieing the purpose of Brexit in many respects through the long marathon of layers of fights and implementing it afterwards. And assuming that we are able actually to shut down U.S. aid, which is powerful symbolically on its own and sends a very powerful message. But in terms of how it will change things on the ground, that remains to be seen, because the plan right now is to merge it into the State Department. Well, guess what? That just gives the State Department a USAID herpes infection, unless the actual underlying operations are cut.
Why is it bad? Why is it bad to have your central intelligence, that you're a hegemon, you're trying to keep the post-war international rules-based order going, you're trying to limit battlefield casualties, so the best way to do it is make sure that everybody's on the take throughout the war. Everybody's got a little piece of the action, Brother Benz. Why is it a bad thing to have something like the USA that sounds on the surface of it? You just saw the big crocodile tears they're crying on MSNBC. It's for humanitarian projects. It's for development projects. It's to help bring water to the village. And that's a pretty good cover. Why is USA? Why do we rip the mask off and say it's a CIA? And what is the advantage to the American people? You mentioned that it gave the money to a same sort of folks throughout the world. Who are those folks, and why is it an advantage to the populist nationalist movement in the American working man and woman to basically rip the mask off, face what it is, and then shut it down, sir?
Well, this is a very, very complicated question, and I really hope that Trump World Foreign Policy folks understand the open heart surgery they're conducting on the way our foreign policy operates around the world. And in terms of why it's a bad thing that USAID does what it does, this is one of these questions that, I've known and followed this stuff for many years, but I never made a crusade about taking it on until USAID got in the business of censoring the internet. And at that point, and censoring Americans on the American internet, and censoring American social media companies as a foreign-facing humanitarian NGO sponsor, that everyone knows is just the CIA's plausible deniability layer and funding conduit. But when it started to be used against Americans on American soil, that to me was the final straw. That no matter how useful it may be to spend $40 billion a year bribing warlords in Africa, bribing oligarchs in Ukraine, bribing and recruiting terrorists in Afghanistan and Pakistan and Syria, disguising medical supply vans, in Venezuela with boxes of AK-47s and military supplies. The fact is it is no longer a foreign policy instrument. It is a domestic control instrument, and that is the final straw. You can't do that to Americans.
Do you have any evidence in all your research, because you're like the axe in the space, that it's actually been used domestically against Americans, not just for doing warlord stuff like that, but actually against Americans?
Oh my God, yes. The USAID in 2021, they made a formal policy pivot to stopping disinformation on the internet, and they targeted U.S. technology companies. They targeted Facebook. They targeted Twitter 1.0. They targeted YouTube. They targeted all of the online information space. They were working with NewsGuard and Global Disinformation Index, and they were partnered with the State Department's Democracy, Rights, and Labor. They have which works with USAID's group called the Democracy, Human Rights, and Rule of Law. I'm sorry, Democracy, Governance, and Rights Bureau. And what they did is, under the banner of democracy promotion. See, this is the thing. They're supposed to be a democracy promotion organization. It's one of the reasons that they are accountable to the House Foreign Affairs Committee and Senate Foreign Relations Committee. They said that mis and disinformation.
I know you got to bounce, but I just want to hold you through a short break and for a minute or two afterwards. I just want to make sure when we leave this today, people understand that you've made the case of why this place is dangerous and not some humanitarian thing, giving out money to like the nuns to save the orphans. in sub-Saharan Africa. Short commercial break. Back with Mike Benz in a moment.
I got American faith in America's heart.
Your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, welcome back. Today, gold at one time $2,848, backed off a little bit. We don't say and tell you to invest in gold. We tell you that gold is a hedge. I think it's proving out in times of turbulence. Think it's turbulent. Canada just rolled over. Mexico rolled over. Natalie's at the White House going to get it all. Confirmations packed at the White House today. birchgold.com/Bannon. Into the dollar empire. The sixth free installment is modern monetary theory, the idea that broke the world. We'll talk about that in a margin call. But go there today, understand it, talk to the Birch Gold specialists. They're the ones that know the detail, but the instrumentality they can use to get you into precious metals, if you so desire. Make sure you're free men and women. Make that decision yourself. Another all-time high earlier in the day and then backed off a little bit. But man, oh man, talk about turbulence in the markets. Markets back up at the close for the first time all day. Ideas have consequences. Mike Benz has been on this idea about a government, an administrative state and deep state that's been out of control. Benz has been on this for years. So, Benz, when they actually start to allocate money to domestic programs and to all the misinformation, shutting down free speech on the internet, like against War Room U, everybody, that money's allocated. We had this audience sat through the appropriations, the individual bills appropriations, and Eli Crane and Matt Gaetz making this case, I think back in the summer of 2024, 23 and 24 for two different authorizations bills. That time, less than 50% of the Republicans backed them. These things didn't pass in these subcommittees. Was anybody overseeing this? Did people on Capitol Hill know that they had started to use this to target American citizens, sir?
Well, let me clarify that, because there's a distinction here, which is that USAID does work that has dramatic impact on our domestic politics and domestic American-to-American affairs, but they funnel it through international organizations that operate on U.S. soil, rather than for the most part directly with U.S. organizations, although they do. For example, the USAID partner with the American Bar Association for and these type of things. But for example, the USAID gave $27 million to the fiscal sponsor of the Soros prosecutor control group. That, everyone here, you talk about Soros prosecutors and Soros funds these prosecutors, and then Soros funded NGOs, in particular this main one called Fair and Just Prosecutions. This group that tells Soros prosecutors what to do. Well, that group got more from USAID than it did from George Soros. They got its fiscal sponsor did $27 million to the Tide Center, which also played a major role in fomenting Black Lives Matter, as one of the main parent groups to the Black Lives Matter groups. You have to understand, USAID is at the dead center. It occupies the center space between the State Department, the Pentagon, and the CIA. It's a switch player that serves as a plausibly deniable assistance agency to the rogue activities of those three federal agencies, and it represents essentially the sum consensus of the foreign policy establishment, the legacy foreign policy establishment that hated Trump with a passion, wanted to take him down because of his foreign policy views and because of his economic nationalism here at home. And what USAID declared doctrinally is that populism is an attack on democracy. They say this openly in USAID meetings. They say this openly in USAID documents. I published this a year and a half ago. The USAID Disinformation Primer published the first month of Biden's term in office, saying that the purpose of their disinformation programs was to eliminate populist subject matter expertise on the internet, because populist news sites undermine USAID programming by undermining public faith and confidence in democratic institutions. Because, don't you know, USAID spends billions of dollars to control the media every year. All the major media outlets in Ukraine are funded by USAID, like the Kiev Independent. All of the major news outlets in Western Hemisphere or in many parts of Africa and Central Asia, it does what the CIA used to do. Everyone remembers Operation Mockingbird. Well, guess what? That's just called USAID Media Sustainability and Media Assistance. Okay, that's all that is. And when populist waves swept the world in the U.S. in 2016 with Trump, and with what happened all over Europe with Marine Le Pen and Matteo Salvini and Nigel Farage. USAID declared censorship holy war against every single populist group, including Bolsonaro. Steve, I'm telling you right now, if USAID did not exist, Bolsonaro would still be the president of Brazil, and Brazil would still have a free and open internet. It was USAID that spent tens of millions of dollars of American taxpayer money funding the push to get anti-misinformation bills passed in the parliament there, funding the legal advocates who pushed the censorship court there, the TSE, to crack down on Bolsonaro tweets and WhatsApp and Telegram messages. They built a censorship octopus in Brazil, and it was built entirely on USAID because USAID declared Bolsonaro a populist, Trump of the tropics, and then set up this operation to control the information ecosystem there. One of the USAID grantees even said on a public call that the purpose was to eliminate the international exchange of ideas between the Trump movement and the Bolsonaro movement. That's what USAID does. They kill domestic populism because it gets in the way of their foreign policy goals.
This is nothing short of breathtaking. Before I leave you, Natalie's going to be at the White House. This movement, they're up in arms on Capitol Hill. All the leftists, everybody's saying Trump doesn't have the authority to do this. He certainly doesn't have the authority to deputize Elon Musk and the Doge guys to do this. This is statutory. It has to be taken down. Do you agree that in the appropriations bill we have to zero it, or you think with Trump and Elon right now, the guys over at Doge is fine? That's enough work. They're going to take it to zero. Everybody's locked out of the building. They're having protests all over. Is that enough?
It's going to be very, very complicated. You know, I said somewhat tongue-in-cheek earlier today that one of the upshots of this reorganization is that Marco Rubio is now arguably going to be the most powerful Secretary of State in American history, because if USAID shuts down and moves over to be directly under the State Department, now Marco Rubio will simultaneously be the head of the State Department and USAID, simply adding, beefing up state with USAID, which is why the dogfight, the trench warfare, is going to come down to whether or not USAID's core mission will continue under the State Department, which is going to be its own fight. It may be the case that the real fight that we have is not necessarily the moment of closing of USAID's building, but just like with Brexit, the real fight comes with the implementation of the cuts and the organizational changes. Once the USAID building is closed, because it could be, it could even be worse than ever if this is parked under state and you have a Hillary Clinton style Secretary of State who now has a sort of godlike power over both state and USAID simultaneously.
No, we have to shut this down. There's no doubt about it, but it's going to be a process. I want everybody in the audience to understand that this is far from over, but man, what a great start. Seeing those guys locked out, those men and women. Benz, you're the best. Where do people go on your social media to get you and all this amazing? And you got to get to Benz's social media because it's constantly updating its information.
Yeah, I post about 100 times a day. Follow me at Mike Benz Cyber on X. And also my foundation, foundationforfreedomonline.com, has blockbuster reports on all of this. We have a huge report on USAID's role in the censorship industry that we published several months ago, made possible because of internal documents obtained by Stephen Miller's America First Legal. And if you read that document on the foundation website, you will never see USAID the same way again.
So it's ironic, on the 3rd of February in the year of our Lord 2025, we have Michael Benz here on the War Room. I remember Beatty called me after he left the White House and said, hey, can I come over and meet with you? I want to introduce you to a guy. So Beatty comes over with Benz, and I'm sitting, they had this idea on this information. I said, these are the two smartest guys I've ever met. This thing unlocks so much. This was in 17 about the oligarchs, right? The oligarchs in the information platform. And here we are on Monday, 3 February. Beatty's been named an assistant Secretary of State.
Undersecretary. I think he's undersecretary, right? Or acting undersecretary.
Undersecretary of State. And
he is Rick Stengel's old job.
Leading. Go ahead, sir.
when we were talking about that with you, we were talking about the Global Engagement Center. This is in 2017, and we were talking about how it all runs out of the Global Engagement Center, which was set up by Rick Stengel, who was the Undersecretary of State for Public Diplomacy. And Darren just took his old job.
This is amazing. No, this is what I want to have you on today. Historic. Darren Beatty
really
is going
is.
to the State Department, one of the most senior jobs, and as the key that picks the lock over there. And Benz is leading the fight, really giving the content that Elon has been hammering through to shut down USAID. A historic day for taking down the deep state, flat out.
We've come a long way.
Beatty and Benz, the killer bees. Thank you, brother. Appreciate you.
All right. See you, Steve.
See you, man. Darren Beatty, incredible. And Mike Benz, more incredible. And go to his Twitter feed. It's unbelievable. I don't have time to play the cold open for Julie Kelly. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to wait, and we're going to go to break. And I'm going to play. When we come back, we're going to play cold open. Julie Kelly's with us. We also have Natalie Winters up at the White House. We're going to get to all of it. And what I want to do is remind you once again of Birch Gold. We're going to come back with a free offer to give you some additional information because things are developing and exploding. Today, the kind of mini trade war ended with, I don't know, kind of surrender by Mexico, kind of surrender by Canada, temporarily, at least for 30 days, but I think it will continue on because I think President Trump's going to get what he gets. Gold hit an all-time high earlier in the day. Why is that? Hey, I don't know. I'm not telling you how to invest your money. Here's what I'm telling you that you need to know. You need a hedge against times of turbulence. Been partnering with Birch Gold, I don't know, 3 or 4 years. We've given you some pretty good information. Get more. Go to birchgold.com/Bannon and talk to Philip Patrick and the team. Please begin to understand they've got a pamphlet, Investing in Gold in the Age of Trump. Time that you sat there, get a cup of coffee, get a cup of Warpath coffee, read it, think about it, talk to Philip Patrick and the team. Short commercial break. Julie Kelly, Natalie Winters, next in the War Room.
By design, each one more alarming than the next. It amounts to a disruption on a scale that is darker and more extreme than what Donald Trump publicly promised, from hundreds of billions of dollars of tariffs that threatened to upend the global economy to the wholesale takeover and in some cases dismantling of entire government agencies by unvetted outsiders led by Elon Musk. But we're going to start with the war being waged by the Trump administration against the nation's top law enforcement agency at the expense of our national security. A possible purge by Team Trump of agents who worked on the January 6th investigation. That is the largest investigation in FBI's history. That internal investigation coming to a head this afternoon. A questionnaire went out asking staffers what, if any, role they played in that probe. It was due this afternoon. The New York Times reports this, quote, the form requires the employees to say if they collected evidence, provided support services, interviewed witnesses, executed search warrants, or testified at trial, basic activities of FBI employees during the normal and lawful course of their duties. The number of employees involved could be as high as 6,000, about a sixth of the FBI's entire workforce. Removing all of them at this time would potentially be a major...
Nicole Wallace, please, chill. Baby, it's not a possible purge. It is a purge, okay? Producers at NBC that write her script, it's a purge. We admit it. Julie Kelly's been there since day one. Julie, thank you. Julie, isn't it great on today? You got USAID being shut down. They locked out the 600 people that in the cold protesting, and you're doing a purge here at the FBI, ma'am, on exactly the topic that you told them they should do it, because this largest criminal investigation is actually an investigation done by criminals, ma'am.
What a tremendous day. Again, have to praise President Trump for putting the right people in place to conduct these purges, whether it's USAID, and of course, commending my friend Mike Benz, because without his diligent work on this, posting all of the information on X and Twitter. His knowledge, I'm sure, is just invaluable. So I want to give him a deserved shout out as well. But yes, so it appears that by today, all of the FBI employees had to respond to a questionnaire asking about their participation and involvement in January 6th, the overall investigation. Now, Steve, as Chris Wray used to brag, the investigation involved all 56 FBI field offices. They all were participating in the investigations, the arrests, the pre-dawn armed raids, the surveillance, collecting information from big tech and from retailers and from banks to track down these people who went into a government building on a Wednesday afternoon 4 years ago. So the answers to that questionnaire was due today at 3:00. And then by tomorrow, I believe at noon, the acting FBI director, who also appears to be trying to not go along with this questionnaire, trying to defy this order handed down by DOJ, he has to then provide the results of the questionnaires to top DOJ officials, and then we will see what they do from there. But as Nicole Wallace said, and other newspapers have reported, it could be up to 6,000 agents. Even the acting FBI director, Brian Driscoll, admitted that he was part of J6 cases as well. So this has been a pervasive abuse of the law of the FBI's powers, and we'll be interested to see the results of that survey and then what the DOJ or Kash Patel does once he's confirmed what he does with that information.
Isn't the guy called the Driz? Aren't they fighting this now? Should Trump just get rid of all these guys too? I mean, isn't there some rearguard action over at the FBI to kick us some store? I heard there was 1,000 agents or something were going to defy Trump's efforts and defy Trump and defy the cleanup of this mess. I don't know if you're hearing the same thing, but I've been hearing this and back channel a lot of stuff. Should President Trump put up with this nonsense or just go in there and just get rid of the whole, whatever's left of the seventh floor, just get rid of them? Driz, because I hear he's trying to be a big stud in front of the FBI guys. They're talking a lot of smack over there, ma'am.
So I think it's okay to kind of lure these officials into a trap and have them defy and be insubordinate to higher ups who are now in charge of the DOJ and then soon FBI. So let's see Brian Driscoll protect his agents and employees and see what happens to him from there. I don't see him surviving, but if he defies these orders, if he is insubordinate, if he's working behind the scenes with employees, instructing them not to fill out and this is a pretty detailed questionnaire, Steve. I mean, this really asks what the agent did. Did they, conduct raids? Were they did they surveil Americans? Were they involved in grand jury proceedings? Did they seek search warrants? Did they testify as witnesses, government witnesses at J6 court proceedings and trials? Because, of course, there was always at least one FBI agent on the stand during these trials. So they really want a granular accounting for what these agents and employees did. So Brian Driscoll is still working behind the scenes to try to thwart that inquiry. That will, I'm sure, result in his ouster. Then you had the head of the New York FBI field office sending in an email, I think it was yesterday, talking about how he was going to dig in, that this was comparable to when he was a Marine and he was hunkered down in a foxhole and he is not going to give up, and encouraging FBI employees to do the same, and talk about how tragic this is for, an internal review as to what the FBI did in J6 cases. So I expect he will be gone soon too. The head of the Miami field office appears to be gone. Of course, the Washington field office gone, the Las Vegas field office, the New Orleans field office. he has been let go as well, or told his employees, his staff, that he expected to be fired and let go as well. Not only because he was on vacation when the attack happened on New Year's Eve in New Orleans, but he had also been at the Washington field office and had his dirty mitts all over the January 6th investigation as well.
Any new updates? We fired, 30 guys, men and women associated with Graves. Any updates on DOJ, Southern District of New York, any of the U.S. Attorney's offices, any update on that? Because they got to purge that whole thing, too.
So acting Deputy Attorney General Emil Bove also had a conference call with 93 U.S. attorneys last week. Some of them have, of course, been fired or left before they were fired. Matthew Graves is one of them. But asking for the names of line prosecutors he could send to the southern border to help enforce immigration law. And this seems to be their approach. Those employees who necessarily are protected or can't be fired, or you want to put them into a situation where they resign, which we've already seen that, being sent to the southern border. Now, Steve, this could be the case with these FBI agents as well. If they fired every single agent involved in the January 6 cases, 6,000 or so agents, that would just be beyond a dream come true. But there's also some speculation that they will also transfer those agents down to the southern border or other places where they can actually fight crime, enforce immigration law, because they have domestic terror expertise and background, because that's what they consider January 6th, an act of domestic terror.
Yeah, I hope they draw the best lots of all those great spots down in the border in Arizona, in the desert, and in Texas, the Rio Grande Valley. That's where they deserve to go. Julie, amazing reporting as always. Where do people go to say if people follow Benz on social media and Julie, you're going to go a long way to understanding how we're taking down the deep state. Where do folks go?
At Julie_Kelly 2 at X, and then my Substack, Declassified with Julie Kelly.
Julie, thank you so much.
Thanks, Steve.
I'm speaking at the end of February. I haven't seen. Is that the 27th or 28th? Anyway, let's get the ad up. Tarrant County. But Jack Posobiec's going to be there. Others, Amanda Milius. So it's going to be a wild night. I can tell you right there. I will speak at Tarrant County. I think Republican Party. I just did it in Denton County the other day. We had over 1,000 at Denton County. I think we're expecting even a bigger crowd in Tarrant, and looking forward to it. PatriotMobile.com. Don't stop giving your money to companies that hate you and hate your values. Patriot Mobile doesn't. A Christian-owned company that believes in Christian values. Use their service today, patriotmobile.com/Bannon. Go check it out. Go on their site, get all the information. Sign up today. A fantastic service. Natalie Winters. Do we have a cold open on Canada and on the, do we have that? Can I play that?
You just have Natalie.
Do you have what now? Let's go and play it. Yeah. Let's play it. Bring in Natalie from the.
Well, what's really striking, because we all know that President Trump campaigned on this message and this promise of lowering costs for everyday Americans. It's something that I heard over and over again on the campaign trail from voters, whether they were voting for President Trump, frankly, or Vice President Harris. The message was that they were very worried about cost of living. But to hear President Trump say that there may be some pain, but that cost of pain will all be worth it down the line, I think was him trying to hedge and prepare the American people for prices going up on everything from avocados coming from Mexico, beer coming from Mexico.
Just yammer about this all day long. Prices are not going up, lady. Prices are not going up. You don't know what you're talking about. None of you people do. It's just yammer. Oh, prices are going up, prices are going up, prices are going up. Prices are not going up. President Trump solved this. Let's go to Natalie Winters. Natalie, Mexico cratered in 24 hours. Sheinbaum, and then Justin Trudeau also cratered. The reason is that Mexico would not be a country 90 days after these tariffs were imposed. They would break apart, and Canada would go into a major, recession or depression. Can you give us an update about the trade wars today that didn't happen?
Well, look, Steve, if I had to count how many times I've heard the word, avocados said here on Media Row, that seems to be the, I guess it's almost as bad as what bipartisan, comprehensive immigration reform. That seems to be the only angle of attack that the same press corps that I'm pretty sure for years has never cared about American consumers, let alone American workers. But now all of a sudden they're really concerned about tariffs, because apparently it's going to hurt the bottom line for Americans at home. I'm pretty sure they never covered inflation or anything remotely close to that for the last 4 years. But this is a complete and utter victory for President Trump. I'm honored to really be standing here on such a truly historic day, because this really shows not only, Steve, that America is back, which is something that we've known just in 2 weeks, but more importantly, that we're done negotiating from the mindset of being losers, or the idea of equity, that because we're an economic hegemon and a global power, that we have to act like we're an inferior country and not throw around our economic heavyweights like we're doing right now with the tariffs. And you know what? We got substantive and substantial wins today, showing how really economic warfare can be used to bring about wins, not just for American workers, but actually for American sovereignty, right? 10,000 Border Patrol agents coming from Mexico. But remember, Steve, Canada too announced $1 billion. What was it? Less than 24 hours after President Trump met with Trudeau, or I guess then President-elect Trump. So this is just win after win. And frankly, Steve, I think it shows something that we've hammered from the get-go, which is that the framing of this as a trade war, as President Trump's trade war, is victim blaming not only President Trump, but the American people. We are the victims in this. Maybe let's call this a little bit of retribution or justice today. But for countries like China, like Mexico, like Canada, who have exploited American workers and the American economy for way too long. And it's nice to have a president who's actually putting American workers first and not taking the bogus line of the Chamber of Commerce and all the talking heads that I'm not too far away from right now.
Natalie, hang on for 1 second. We'll take a short break. We're going to talk confirmations when we return to the White House.
Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
How do we get up and stay up at the War Room? Number one, Warpath Coffee, warpath.coffee/War Room. Get your 20% discount. Don't take it from me. There's now 6,500 five-star reviews on the site. Go, just play around the site, see all the different blends they have, how they made it, how Tej got the idea from Navy SEALs. So from being a Navy SEAL and wanting coffee as good as his equipment, his material, as they say in the military. Also from Brick House, we've got Field of Greens. We get up with the coffee. We stay up and rolling with Field of Greens. It's 100% natural. You see all the ones advertised on TV. They're kind of a little bit synthetic, tiny, because the process here is 100% natural, organic. I know that means something to you, so go check it out today. You will absolutely love this product. The energy you get, the focus you get, all of it. fieldofgreens.com. Natalie Winters, FBI, USDA, you've been on this one for years now. Today's a big day for you, is it not, ma'am?
It's a huge day for a myriad of reasons. I want to start, though, with a little bit of a, resistance update for our audience, particularly in the silo of what's going on at the FBI. Obviously, everyone's favorite Norm Eisen, State Democracy Defenders, that's his group, in conjunction with sort of other people who've been instrumental figures in basically every impeachment and whistleblower against President Trump, that is, infamous attorney Mark Zaid, are now threatening to essentially take other actions against the Trump administration for daring to purge the FBI of the rot that so desperately needs to go. I think like I said last week, we're starting to see the sort of first showdown between the resistance, lawfare elements and what President Trump wants to do in terms of gutting the administrative state. And to link that to what you're seeing go on at USAID, I think the signal, not the noise, is what Elon Musk was tweeting about USAID. It wasn't just the concept or the sort of paradigm shift that, our tax dollars shouldn't be going and funding ridiculous woke programs in foreign countries. He was tweeting actually about stories that we've, I think, broke here on the War Room, myself over at the National Pulse, about the biolabs in Ukraine and COVID, the Wuhan Institute of Virology receiving upwards of $50 million from USAID to engage in risky gain-of-function research. So it's sort of the dark underbelly that is USAID, which I think is the important paradigm shift that needs to be happening. But let's just take a moment, Steve, and just celebrate, truly, again, a historic day, how far we have come, but most importantly, I think today you're seeing essentially the supermajority, right, that Republicans have on full display. Because what do you have? Jamie Raskin looking like an utter and complete clown, standing outside of USAID giving some weak, limp speech about how they're going to take on and tackle Elon Musk. Bro, you have no power. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm sure they're already writing the impeachment papers, and 2 years from now, they're going to focus on that. But at least for the next 2 years, they have basically no way to push back, with the exception of, frivolous lawsuits from groups like Norm Eisen. But I think today really shows you it's asymmetrical warfare. And I think for so long, we've been on the opposite side of that equation. But today, whether it's the tariffs, what's going on at the FBI, what's going on at USAID, they are in full-blown panic. And they look like petulant children because they have really no grounds for recourse. And isn't that wonderful? I think we call that a little something called retribution or justice. I'll take it.
Big win. Real quickly, we got about a minute and a half, 2 minutes. Mike Davis is going to join us here in a minute, but talk to me about the White House perspective on the confirmation process, ma'am.
Well, I think they're extremely grateful for all the calls that this audience has been making. I'm pretty sure they were receiving upwards of 600 calls a minute, so much so that I believe the Senate phone call system was in meltdown and hasn't been working. So shout out to the War Room posse on that front. I think with, each respective nominee, who the sort of weak points are, the Achilles heels are. But I will say, Steve, I do think that it is interesting. And I think it goes back to something that we've talked about. If you watch MSNBC, they're always having this sort of internal struggle session about, whether or not we should take the bait on this issue or that issue. And I think that they know the more that they sort of fan the flames of attacking these nominees, the more cover it will give these squishy Republican senators. So it is interesting how they're not covering it with the same level, I think, of intensity that they did Pete Hegseth, because they learned their lesson. And most importantly, they learned that I guess it's better to be, loved than feared by the War Room audience. But they learned the power and the wrath of the War Room posse that were not to be messed with.
Natalie, social media and how can you go? Because I know you're having 50 stories a day written about you. They're picking on you over there. We know that. But you're tough. You're a tough kid. You're a tough kid.
Yeah, they're not going to get to me. They're jealous, and they should be, because our show's better than theirs. Just look at the viewership. Natalie G. Winters on all social media platforms.
You're great, and we can see you on the Matt Gaetz show tonight. The Matt Gaetz show on One American News. You're going to be
tonight, and I just did Piers Morgan, so
tonight.
You can watch me debating dwarf FAA controllers too.
Natalie Winters, Natalie G. Winters.
Let's just say I won.
We'll see you. Thank you, ma'am. No doubt about that. Thank you, ma'am. Mike Lindell, Mega MAGA. Last time for Mega MAGA, sir.
Yeah, this is it, everybody. You got a few hours left, and that'll be it for the exclusive mega sale for the War Room posse, with 30% off the crosses and all the towels and the flannel sheets. They're $44.98. There it is, everybody. Use promo code MEGA. Call the call center. Go to the website. There's going to be a lot of that stuff that's not going to be there tomorrow. We have a different deal going on tomorrow. You'll have to tune in for that. But for today, I know you all love the mega deal. Get the crosses 30% off, the towels $29.98, the sheets. You get those flannel sheets, $59.98 for the queen, $69.98 for the king. You guys, free shipping on your entire order today. So take advantage of that. Get the beds made in 100% made in the USA, the mattress toppers, all the pillows are on sale for the War Room posse. Every kind, the premiums, the classics, the body pillows, they're all on sale for the War Room posse today. Free shipping, last few hours for the Mega MAGA sale. Promo code War Room.
MyPillow.com, promo code War Room. Mike, we'll see you in the morning. I'll let you go back to work.
All right. Thanks, Steve.
Mike Davis is going to drill down. He's just getting back from the White House. We're going to drill down on more on the confirmation hearing. Also, a leak coming out of the White House. President Donald John Trump intends to shut down the Department of Education. How about that? Every day is Christmas Day here at the War Room. We're going to leave you with the right stuff. Short commercial break, second hour. Mike Davis in the house, in the War Room.